Canada's been through tragic cases of friendly fire before. Remember April 2002, 4 Canadians killed in Afghanistan by an American airstrike. 13 years later, has enough been done to make sure this kind of accident never happens again? And then there's lots of questions about the risk. How much risk are Canadian Special Forces in Iraq facing? Joining me in the foyer of the House of Commons is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence, James Bezan, the NDP Defence Critic, Jack Harris, and the Liberal Defence Critic, Joyce Murray. Mr. Bezan, according to the report that we've just heard, there was a series of incidents. Something must have broken down. When there's a change of shift and you're crossing back into safe territory, there's supposed to be long-standing protocols in place. Why were there not protocols to inform the new crew of the Peshmerga that Canadians were there and coming?
And that I can't speak to, Evan. You know, first of all, I want to again express our condolences to Sergeant Doiron's family, friends, and colleagues. You know, this was a tragedy through friendly fire. I think the report today very clearly stipulated that the Canadian forces acted with professionalism, that they followed all established protocol, and up until checkpoint number 7, everything was in place, including a call to the front or up to the forward operating positions of the Peshmerga that the Canadian soldiers were coming down at 2300 at 11 o'clock to provide them with advise and assist as they deal with the situation that occurred the day before.
But let me get this straight, though. If they'd done everything perfectly, you would think, as had happened before, there would have been an established protocol when you are crossing back toward your Allied lines like this. There wasn't. Has there been any accountability? Who on the Kurdish side failed to say Canadians were coming? Who on the Canadian leadership side failed to make sure that when there was a change of guard on the Kurds, the Canadians would be safe? There was clearly a fatal failure here. Who's responsible, and what happened to that person?
Well, as General Rouleau said in his briefing today, that all the protocols that were in place that had been used for right up until we first went over there and back in October were still being used, not just in this region, but in other regions as well with other coalition partners. So protocols had been established, the protocols were followed, and they were actually used just earlier that day at the very same location when Special Operation Forces had visited that same
I appreciate
site.
it, but my question is that obviously the protocol wasn't followed. So if there were protocols for this situation and it broke down, and I looked through this report and I listened to Brigadier General Rouleau, but I still am not sure. These are our allies. We're supposed to be training them. We still don't have a clear picture of why the protocol was not followed, why it wasn't. The new group of Peshmerga did not know the Canadians were coming, why they didn't have night vision equipment. We still don't know that. Why not?
Well, and as the General said, there was no night vision goggles on location. That Sergeant Doiron and his colleagues had clearly identified themselves when they got to the position where they came under fire. And so definitely, you can extrapolate that there was a breakdown in communications with the change of the guard, so to speak. And that's when, the troops that had been on the night shift the day before had come back and weren't the same soldiers that were there from the Peshmerga that were there earlier in the afternoon. So, yeah, there was a breakdown, but definitely everybody through the whole check process were aware that the Canadian Special Operations Forces operators were moving forward and that they were on time and were scheduled to do this visit.
Okay, so there's been no accountability on the Kurdish side. Finally, before I move on to the opposition, one of the things that struck me about Brigadier General Michel Rouleau's statement, he said this is a very, very dangerous area. There had been a very major firefight not 24 hours earlier. Obviously, the Kurds were exhausted from it and jumpy. This goes back to what you and I and the opposition have spoken about a lot, which is why are Canadian soldiers who are supposed to be advising and assisting in an area where they can be in heavy firefights in such dangerous territory that the Peshmerga are ready to kill them and did kill a Canadian because it's such a dangerous area? What justifies Canadians being in a position that dangerous?
Well, our Special Operations Forces, in their advise assist, command and control, often need to be near the front. And also, I should just say that they were visiting this location at the invitation of the Kurdish Peshmerga, who had requested that they come and look at how the battle had occurred the night before and what changes they needed to incorporate. And so they were there earlier in the day, and of course the lay of the land looks much differently at night, and that's why they were asked to come back at the time that they did. And so, you know, we have to keep in mind that they aren't going there to fight, they're going there to help, and that's exactly what they were doing.
All right, Jack Harris, what's your take on what this report has revealed?
Well, you know, I think there's an awful lot of unanswered questions in all this. If they followed all the protocols, well, clearly the protocols were inadequate. And I'm not necessarily to blame of an individual soldier, but the operation clearly didn't work because, you know, and what hasn't been answered is, how are you going in to so-called advise and assist people who you can't communicate with because they don't speak your language and you don't speak theirs? They don't know you're coming. Do you just sort of show up by yourselves without any Kurdish fighters with you or leadership with you, and we're here now to advise and assist you? It doesn't make any sense so far.
It's about observing and making comments back to the
and we're
commanders
going out
after.
to the front lines in a very dangerous place where the Prime Minister of this country told Canadians we wouldn't be accompanying them to the front lines. Now we find that we're going to the front lines, not even accompanied by them. I mean, this has not been explained, and I think that yes, we're all shocked and saddened by the death of Sergeant Doiron, and it seems to me that it's something that we weren't anticipating because we didn't think we were going to be there in those kind of very dangerous situations, and I think the government has to acknowledge that.
Okay, Joyce Murray, you've heard the military's report on it. The final word is essentially it was a tragic case of mistaken identity, no fault of the Canadian soldiers. The new Kurdish crew was unaware of Kansov's return to Position 7. Are all your questions answered or not?
Well, it certainly was. It's a sad situation, and it's good to actually have a report after the last couple of months of having hints here and there and leaks of what might have happened. So I think that it really does boil down to why were they there when the Prime Minister had said they would not be accompanying at the front lines. When James was talking about the protocols that all the coalition partners were following, well, in fact, the other coalition partners were not at the front lines. They were deliberately kept well back from there. So why was our Prime Minister content to have a shift in the mandate of this mission that puts our soldiers not just at the front lines, but at the front lines when an attack was expected and the Peshmerga soldiers were jumpy and hypersensitive.
Right.
So, I mean, why did the Prime Minister actually do that when all of our other coalition partners said, no, that's too risky to be at the front lines. It's not necessary. We can train and advise from safer positions. I would say there's some disrespect for the lives and well-being of our soldiers compared with the coalition partners.
Okay, I'll get a response, but very quickly, are you satisfied with the new precautions taken? Joyce Murray and then Mr. Harris?
Well, we haven't heard the whole set. I understand that we've heard just one of the...
They'll only move at night with a Kurdish soldier.
So that probably is more safe than what they were doing before, but in the dark, in a combat zone, there's a lot of, it can be a confluence of factors, other factors, so I'm not qualified to say that that all the risks are being mitigated. What I would say is that the Prime Minister should go back to his original promise to Parliament and Canadians that our soldiers will not be accompanying at the front lines, that they will be training well back where our coalition partners are training.
Obviously, the Kurds originally in March had a different version, but Mr. Harris, are you satisfied with what we know the new precautions are going to be? There's more, but we only know a few.
Well, it's pretty hard to be satisfied if we don't know what they're doing. The one that we do know is fairly obvious, should have been in place in the first place, that we don't go into the battle zone without being accompanied by somebody who can speak the language, who knows we're coming, and who will be recognized by the others as part of their forces. That's mistake number one. Well, that seems to be fairly obvious from somebody who's not involved in the battle at all. That's all they told us we're going to do. So we don't know how are we to be satisfied if we don't know what the mitigating factors are. They're not keeping them away from the front lines and away from the danger. That's something that we would want to see happen, because we're not. How is that different from being on the front lines, returning fire in the danger zone, advising and assisting? What does that mean?
All right, Mr. Bezan, any repercussions for the Kurdish fighter or fighters that killed Sergeant Doiron and injured the others? What repercussions will they face?
And I'm not aware of any repercussions. And I can just say that based upon what Jack and Joyce had just said, that we've got to remember that just a few weeks ago we voted on the extension and expansion of this mission. Parliament approved it, and in that discussion that we had, we did talk about Special Operation Forces doing their job and training, advising, assisting, command and control, which includes sometimes having to go up and do observation near the front.
But you're glossing over something important. Why aren't you aware of repercussions? If a Canadian soldier killed one of our...
speaking.
Well, we're just trying to figure out. If a Canadian soldier killed an American soldier, or and as we had happen in Afghanistan, we all remember tragically Canadians killed by Americans, there were repercussions. We're supposed to be training at the front lines with the Peshmerga. Why don't Canadians know what repercussions happen? Shouldn't we know that?
As General Rouleau said in his briefing today, we have to respect our coalition partners, which includes the Kurdish Peshmerga, into what they want to release to the public. We're releasing what we're comfortable with and what doesn't violate our relationship with our allies.
I'm not 100% sure why that can't be released to the public. We have a tragic death of a soldier, serious injury to others.
Well,
we've had a report. Why can't we know what happened?
And we've
got a two-page report. It's the size. It's like having a postcard. There's very little details, and clearly the government is keeping back information that might actually be uncomfortable.
When we had four Canadian soldiers killed in Afghanistan, the American pilot was actually charged and found guilty of negligence.
That's right.
So we do know there was transparency. That's transparency, not we don't know anything.
Okay, well, let's find out. I have 10 seconds. Mr. Bezan, do the Canadian military want some accountability from the Peshmerga now that this report has found that it was their fault? Mr. Bezan.
And I can't speak to that at this point in time.
Okay, given the fact that this has happened, why does the Canadian military continue to send our men and women, or our men in this case, to the front if there's not trust or transparency about how they act and what accountability they have? Why do we keep doing it? Why do we keep doing it?
Well, Evan, I didn't read the report as saying that it was the fault of the Peshmerga. I read it as saying that the protocols were not adequate for the situation. I mean, presumably, it's our military that put those protocols in place to make it less likely for something to happen. So who is accountable is not necessarily the Peshmerga.
Well, it says here the Peshmerga thought they were ISIS fighters, an open fighter. But Mr. Bezan, why are we still sending men and women to the front lines like this if we don't have accountability for this incident and there's this kind of thing can happen?
Well, I think that when Minister Kenny and Prime Minister Harper met with the Kurdish officials, along with the Prime Minister of Iraq later that day, this was discussed. We believe that we had...
The Prime Minister didn't know anything about it, according to him, he told the media.
I can tell you, General Lawson was over there as well.
And he was making speeches right after the Prime Minister said he didn't see any reports, he doesn't know, he refused to answer any questions.
Let's just make sure that we are always wanting to make sure that we have the relationship intact and that we are continuing to cooperate and coordinate with the Kurdish Peshmerga as we take the fight to ISIL. And let's not forget that we're there to degrade the capabilities of this death cult and carrying out their genocide against the people. And we're talking about Canadians doing a great job, and we're proud of each and every one of them.
No one's talking about that. We're talking about this particular incident. James Bezan, Jack Harris, Joyce Murray, I always appreciate your time on a very tragic incident, but new report out about it. I appreciate your perspectives. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Evan.